Body of an Extrovert. If you haven't already, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so that this way when we drop new episodes, you guys are the first to know. And if you're listening on a listening platform such as Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, be sure to like, add to your favorites, and leave a review. That is how we keep the lights on here. So help us out. If you want to see us in broad daylight, that's the way to do it. So on the couch with me today is one of my closest friends, Rose, and she's gonna introduce herself. You're gonna see why it's so important, but tell us about yourself, Rose. Tell us, your history.
It's the Rose.
I never call her Rose. Yeah. I will not give out her nickname.
Please don't.
I feel like for the sake of your safety.
Yes.
But so yes, on the couch with me is someone that I respect and admire and consider one of my closest, dearest friends in this life. Is none other than Rose. I am going to allow you to introduce yourself to our audience. Tell us about yourself.
My name is Rose. It's a very odd name for me to introduce myself as, since that's not normally the name I use. I am a recently graduated student going back to school.
Come on, talk about it. You better give your accomplishments.
Yes. Hopefully, within the next 3 to 4 years, I'll be an established clinical social worker working somewhere, trying to make a difference. I'm not a first generation, I'm actually an immigrant. I moved to America when I was 11 and just been doing this thing called life.
It's good?
It's good. I'm grateful for life. I'm grateful to be alive. So, yeah.
The way you said it with such seriousness, you're going to have people think that you're facing death multiple times.
Not multiple times, but what we will unpack here
will elaborate as to why it looked that way sometimes. Huh?
Yes. But life is good.
So so then let's get into it. So I asked Rose to be on the podcast today because she recently just got back from Korea. She's not even been back in the States 3 months. She's not even been back. So she was living abroad for a little bit. She was teaching abroad. And we kind of wanted to talk about that experience. So first and foremost, you're already an immigrant to the United States. Like, you moved here in your formative years. How was that for you? Like, let's touch on that. What was the transition from Haiti to America? Like, what was that like?
Gosh, you probably have heard the stories, but it'll be new for them. Obviously, growing up in Haiti is like, I didn't realize how good I had it in Haiti. I wasn't a bourgeoisie type of person, but I was definitely in higher middle class. And then you come to America, then your mother's job doesn't exist here because she didn't go to school here, and you get into working poor. You
go from the upper middle class to the working poor.
Yeah, getting a dress every other month because that was just who your mother was, to you just wearing things from Goodwill. Not to poop on Goodwill or whatever, because I still
But the transition is different.
Yeah. Other than that, I guess, for the lack of better words, because I came here during my formative years, I am viewed much more as American than as Haitian, although I wish it wasn't like that, but it is what it is. But yeah.
Do you feel like coming from Haiti to the U.S. and kind of feeling like an outsider colored your perspective of the country, perhaps?
Oh yeah, for sure. But when I came here, it was always like, I came here for a better life. So it was just a pit stop. So whatever was thrown at me, it is what it is. Because I'm not here for long, I'm here to get a man, get an education, and take it somewhere else where I'm valued, so.
Okay, so can I first ask, why was Asia one of the places that you felt like you would want to go? Because, and I'm only asking because as someone who has also traveled, Asia's never crossed my mind. And it might just be because I'm not maybe tuned in to Asian cultures and stuff like that, which ironically I ended up living in China for a period of time.
Listen.
But I'm like, it wasn't something that I volunteered to do. Of all the countries that I would have, signed up for, it's not one that I would have considered. So can I ask why, when you thought one of the places that you could go and be successful, you thought of Korea?
Well, actually, it wasn't Korea. It was Japan. Japan was like the end goal, but Korea kind of like ended up being where I wanted to be due to like circumstances in life and specifically the pandemic. So yeah, but I guess the love for Japan specifically came into play like ever since I was a kid. I cannot think of a time when I was not aware of Japan. Because in Haiti, like when we watch TV, we mostly watch like either like Haitian TV or mostly cartoons, specifically anime. So I could think of like watching Yu-Gi-Oh, the Dragon Ball Z, Cowboy Bo Peep, you name it, like those old 90s animes was what we used to watch in French, So ever since then, I was like, yo, this is cool, So I was like, I would like to go to Japan. I would like to go to, somewhere in East Asia specifically. But then when I moved here to America, I fell into like, the Korean thing, and I was like, what?
Oh, like the K-pop.
Yeah, the K-pop, the K-dramas. First of all, let me say this. I'm an OG K-popper, okay? Don't play. I was a K-popper when it wasn't fun to be K-pop, specifically being black. It wasn't fun to be into anime and K-pop. Like, you were like, that black weirdo, like, you want to be Asian? Or you like those Asian people? Like, it was, you had like, you didn't talk about it. You didn't talk about it unless you knew that person was into it, So, I just want to say, I was an OG.
Okay, so you were an OG, yes. Korean stan.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I'll say after I was in high school, I feel like there was definitely a Korean flood. Like, I think the bands, I think the skincare, definitely the K-drama swept the U.S. and it became like a little culture, like a culture within itself. So like one that you could tap into. So like you would say that because of your interest in that, you were like, oh, okay, like I could do Korea as well.
Yeah, and mostly too, like my biggest thing with wanting to go to Japan, and y'all gonna hear a lot about Japan because that's the mother of it all, is that I wanted to learn the language. And then I realized learning kanji and learning actual Japanese, like there's a reason why before kids start school, they take Japanese lesson. Like it's a skill they have to take. Like learning the language is a lot. Now, I was sitting there, I was like, oh, I can't do that. So I was like, what's the quickest, easiest East Asian language I could learn? And it wasn't Mandarin, I could tell you that. But, so I was like, Korean is the easiest one. They have 26 symbols, just like we do. And they're circular, they're very like rounded, it's easy, there's not too many strokes to it. So I was like, I could learn that. And it's true, like if you try to learn Hangul, you can learn all of the characters within hours. It's easy. And that was like my saving grace.
So because of that, you felt like, okay, like this makes it easier then. So then can I ask how you got to Korea? Because you graduated from UConn, the pandemic hit. How did you end up in Korea?
Oh, listen, I do things and I do it big. No test drive, just jump right in. So first I applied to the JET program, which is specifically for teaching English in Japan. But unfortunately, Japan was like, we're not letting anybody in with this.
Due to the pandemic.
Yeah,
I recall.
Yeah, and they were like, if we want to hire you, you have to have a master's in English, like a master's in teaching. And then you have to have some type of like minor within like the English language. So they were letting like the top of the top in. So because of that, I didn't get accepted. And also, I didn't even graduate yet. So I didn't have anything to show. So I was like, okay, I guess. And I was in such a hurry to leave America. I was like, all right, we'll go with the next best thing, Korea. Because I was like, if I can't go to Japan, Korea, I gotta go. So I applied. And lo and behold, they accepted me. And I was like, all right, my life about to start right now. And I was wrong.
So here's the thing. So like you were saying that you were in such a rush to leave the United States. Can I ask why that was?
It's just, I guess, like, I put my entire life on hold. I just realized that now. Like, dating, like, trying to, like, have like some type of establishment within America, because I was like, I don't want anything to hold me back, because I know my goal. Like I was at 16, I was like, once I graduate college, I have that bachelor, I'm out of here. So we don't need no boyfriend holding us back.
No
jobs,
no like heavy set jobs.
Yeah, no big girl's job, no like connection where I'm like, okay, I have responsibility, I have something that tethers me to America where I can't just drop and go. So I literally like, I steered my life from freshman year of of high school to the end of like college to literally lead to that path. Yeah.
So when you found out you got accepted to the program, what was that feeling?
Girl, I'll tell you, yo, and it's so funny seeing it because I was so happy. I was crying.
Well, of course you're happy because it's something that you were waiting for your whole life. Like
yeah.
from 16, you were like, this is it. This is the moment. This is the moment I've been waiting for.
I was so happy. My mama was not.
Yeah, how were your family's reaction to it?
First of all, Mom, I always told, like I said, like I've come to realize I'm the type of person, if I say it, I'm about it, because it's just like, because I will hold myself accountable for it. So I already told my mom, like at 16, the minute, and I keep saying 16 because that was the age when I first saw the video for Epik, because before that, it was always Jet. It was always Jet. So if I didn't get into Jet, my life was over. But I was like, no, not really, because there's another program. There's Epik. So we could do Epik. So now, you have 2 avenues of getting this life started. So I done told my mom, I was like, hey, Ma, like before I was like, I'm going to go to Japan. She was like, yeah, whatever. But then when I found out about Epik, I was like, hey, my whole has opened up. Okay, I'm going to be in Asia. I'm going to be there. So she was like, yeah, you got to go to whatever. So I was like, yeah. And then when I applied, she was like, yeah, you're going to go. And then I got accepted. And she was like, huh, so you're going to go? I was like, yes. I'm sitting here writing a damn essay. Yes, I'm going to go. I did my time. It's time for me to reap what I sow. So she was very upset, needless to say. But she was cool about it. She was like, yeah.
Supportive even though.
She was. And let me tell you something. My mama must be a clairvoyant, because she was like, now what? You're going to come back. But we'll see,
You're going to go, but we're going to see what happens.
Yeah, because when I was going, because y'all don't understand, this was me going forever. There was no coming back. I was like, I packed for at least a good
several years.
Yes.
Yeah, she, like, I will say, we, a group of our friends, we got her, like, suitcases to travel so that they can match and things. She packed everything she owned. If she could have folded her bed and put it in there, she would have. Like, she took every last thing she owned, was giving away, sold her car, was giving away things. She was like, I am never coming back.
Yeah.
Sayonara, suckers. Mm-hmm. This is the end for us. And earnestly, can I say, like, when you were leaving, first of all, I was so happy when you got accepted, because since 16, you've been blabbering our ears off about it. And so I was like, wow, like this is truly a moment she has worked towards and waited for. Mm-hmm. And I was like, although it's not one necessarily that I understand, I was just so glad that like your dream had been realized. So like she packed every last thing she had, sold all her worldly possessions, and she was like, Korea, here I come.
Yep.
So you touch down in Korea, you have to quarantine.
Oh yes.
How was that? Like, how was like the first few days on the ground?
You're just feeding off each other's energy,
so you're still on a high.
Yes.
So then you're done with orientation. You get packed up in a car or a van. You start heading to your location. So first and foremost, I think it's really important to elaborate that a lot of people who come to these programs, whether it's JET or whether it's Epik, they hope to be placed in metropolitan cities. But the reality is, it's a lottery system. Like, you don't know where you're going to be placed.
Yeah.
So at orientation, they tell you where you're placed.
First of all, they tell you on the last day of orientation where you are placed. And
I bet that's on purpose.
It is. And here's the problem, too, okay? From the get-go, like, whenever they send you your contract, because you do have to sign a contract, that contract, baby, is binding. Don't take it for granted. That contract is binding. Please, if anybody go to, I don't know about JET, but Epik specifically, read your contract. Read your contract, please. Read it. I'm going to say it a 4th time. Read your contract. Believe me, it will make or break you. But I knew what province. But I will say this: I was a little bit ignorant about geographical things. So Seoul is right here. I thought I was in Gyeonggi, which is around Seoul. So when they told me the news, oh baby, I was excited. And then I realized, like closer to me, like taking my flight to go Korea, we are not in Gyeonggi. We are in Gyeongsangnam-do. And Gyeongsangnam-do is close to Busan, which is at the tippy tip of like, you
The
know.
bottom.
Yeah. So I'm literally from a train ride. If the train ride makes all the stop, I'm about 4 hours to 5 hours away from Seoul. So that's just to let you know I was in West Bumba. So when I realized that, I was like, okay, well, we made our bed. Now we got to lay it in. So also, I would say I was very happy because I was close to Busan. I was about a 50-minute bus ride close to Busan.
And then, so for those of you who don't know, Busan is also a metropolitan area. It's certainly not Seoul,
It's not.
but I would compare it to like if you're from Connecticut and you're adjacent to New York. I would say Busan is Stanford, whereas Seoul was New York City, like it's Manhattan. I feel like those are very good reference points
Oh yes,
for
for
those
sure.
who are unfamiliar.
For sure.
So at least you were by Busan. So
Yeah.
that was your comfort.
Yes, thank God.
Okay.
So I got excited because on the last day, literally the last day, the night before you hop on the bus and go where you need to go, they sit you down and they start putting the map and they start telling you where's where. So I wanted to be in Chungwon. Chungwon is like the big city of my town. Like if you there, you know, you got a tiny bit of diversity within food, not with people, but within food. And you're closer to Busan. And there's a train line directly to Seoul, which is what you always want. Cause where I was, there wasn't. Okay, our bus stopped working at 6:30. You know, you can guess. So I was hoping for Chungwon. If it wasn't Chungwon, I was hoping for Masan because Masan is number 2. Oh, no. Everybody's name popping up. I'm sitting here like, ooh. And then my name popped up and I got this small town named Haman. And needless to say, don't nobody, even in Korea, when I was traveling, they were like, where you live? I was like, Haman. They were like,
Never
what
heard
is
of it.
that? I was like, well, I live in Gyeongsangnam-do. And they're like, man, yeah. So just to let you know, I was in a small town. Like you could walk. We walked the town.
Yeah, we would walk the town. It was nice.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you get to Haman, you're there. So what was the experience like?
Funny enough, I moved to Korea on February 11th, and by April 1st, I already knew I wasn't gonna stay. Like I'm the type of person. Listen, when something is not for me, it's not for me. I'm not gonna force it. It's not for me. It was a dream. We got to live it. Thank God, you know. The glory go to Him. You know, we got to live it. But within a month, I realized like this is not for me. So I was lucky enough. God looked down upon me favorably and gave me a workplace where it was very relaxed. My school was an academic school, but it wasn't like the academic school where it was like, you know, because each school in Korea you come to learn is that each school have their personality. You have the fun school where they don't do a lot of testing. They, you know, it's for like the creative kids. You have the sports school where if you go to that school, when you go to high school, you know, you have a better chance of being part of a certain sport. So my school was the academic school, but it was also a sports school, specifically volleyball. So we weren't pressed, like the teachers, well, for my department, we weren't pressed of like giving results. The things that I guess I did not like was that there, under all of that, there's like an underlying feeling of like you need to work. You need to work, rain and shine. Whether you're sick or healthy, you need to work. So there's this thing in Korean schools where they do not hire substitutes. If you don't come to work, somebody else will have to take your job. So if I don't go like to work, let's say like the 6th grade homeroom teacher have to take my job.
For that day and kind of cover your classes?
Yeah, and they have this big thing within the work culture, actually within society itself, where you do not want to be a burden. So if you're sitting here, you got the flu, you have to come to work. You cannot call and be like, I'm sick. You gotta come. Like I had coworkers who were sick. Like they're holding themselves, they are at work. And I'm like, why? Because you're spreading your germs coming here.
You're likely making everyone else sick.
Yeah, but they like that. They're like, oh, you're a hard worker. You're not being a burden to others, which is just very detrimental to your health. Like
that societal aspect, that societal lesson of not being a burden, I'm glad that it didn't impact you so heavily, but it seemed to really impact others in a very negative way. And it's funny because you keep saying how lucky you are. And I think of, some of the people that we had conversations with, because, it was the close of the year and we would sit down and be like, how was it for you? And I remember you saying that one of your friends was like, she was sick and she had to go in and she's literally holding herself up, like can barely get through the lessons.
Yeah.
But in order for them to be considered, good, workers, it had to be so. And then also too, when it comes back to reading the contract, from what I understood, like if you were seen as a burden on the school or maybe not necessarily a good employee, there were repercussions. So what do those repercussions look like?
So those repercussions I feel like they are specifically there for people who wants to stay in Korea. Those repercussions is like if you get a warning, that can affect like your visa. That's the one thing they hold over your head. Now for somebody like me, this whole visa thing, y'all can't hold it over my head. I don't care. I don't gotta come back here, But the biggest thing they hold over people's head is that we can take your visa from you. And I will never forget that one of my neighbors, she told me, and that hurt me because they were like, yo, like if you not gonna learn how to work within the Korean work culture, you're replaceable. We'll get another one of you. And the truth is they will.
Yeah. And then B, the reality is, although you were one of the lucky ones, not many people had great or even safe workplaces.
Yeah.
I know that you were one of the people that did a lot of research. Like as we started peeling back more and more layers as to why, a lot of people went over there, even though they had very strict contracts and all these things, it was very much like, well, I saw this girl on social media, I saw this girl on YouTube, I heard this story from a friend, and everyone is like, it's so great, it's so great, it's so great. And no one ever says, actually, the contract is quite stiff.
Yeah.
You only have, I think, 11 days PTO
for we're about to talk about that.
Like, it was, and they're holding your visa, and these workplace environments, again, like you were one of the fortunate ones, but left a lot of people feeling unsafe. A lot of it went unsupervised.
Oh, for sure.
There was very little aid, and I think that when you discuss the difference between a program such as JET and Epik, JET being a government program and Epik being really just a recruiting house. So like for you to kind of just be dropped into a country with no actual support from those who kind of brought you in, I can imagine how unsettling that is for so many people.
For sure. Like the contract, and I know I'm going back to it because the contract is the end all be all. Like, because if you don't do those two things, which is give you 60-day notice and your replacement, they can withhold money from you. And mind you, you went there. It's not like when you come back to your home country, you get a job like right away. So you need that money. You need that payment that you gave. So if you work for that whole month and you leave, they're not gonna pay you that month. So yeah. So for some people, they hold a lot of things above your head, and then the vacation. Because I remember the biggest thing why people were like, join Epik, and not so much about JET. I didn't see that for JET, but for Epik specifically, the biggest thing is that before this year, now the policy have changed. Now they give 11 days, but during my year was the last year they did that, they gave you 26 days, 26 vacation days. And people were like, yo, with Epik and all of that, I can travel, because my end goal was to backpack throughout Asia. So I was like, I got 26 days. Asia's very close together, except for Indonesia, somebody got to be different. But they're very close to each other. I can take a small plane, go there, go to Japan, go to Vietnam, do this and do my little thing for like a long weekend, just take a Friday and a Monday off, and I have ample time. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Like, people talk about Epik and they don't tell you about this specific caveat that you cannot take those vacation days unless you are not teaching on that day. And what used to piss me off about it is that I would go to work and then they're like, oh, by the way, all your classes today is canceled. I'm like, why didn't you tell me that last night and I could have taken that day for my vacation day? So you got me coming here. The lack of communication is huge. Even me being lucky with my school, lack of communication, like they do not communicate with you. And then they get upset when you are unaware. Besides the whole burden idea within society, they have a huge, hierarchy. So their morals, the way that they work throughout society is very based, like, on Confucianism. And with Confucianism, you have two things that's going on: hierarchy and, like, age. Like, age plays a big factor in Korea, if you don't know. The first thing somebody's going to ask you is what year you're born. It's so they can establish that hierarchy.
Where you fall, yeah.
And it's not just about age, it's also about position within work. So you can have a coworker who, like, mind you, we all do the same job. We're part of the English department. We all are equal, which they don't tell you also. But some of them, they will act like they are your boss. So to create that hierarchy. So they can say whatever they want. They could take your lesson plan and use it as theirs. They can use your ideas as theirs to, like, propel them further into, like, their career. Mind you, they are getting your idea. They'll tell you, like, hey, oh, you created this lesson plan? Send it to me. And then present it as theirs. So, yeah. So it can make work life very difficult, which was something that I necessarily did not deal with, but the people in my town did.
Okay. And then it becomes, like, what does the chain of command look like for when there's a situation that arises? So this seems to be a common occurrence for many people who struggled with coworkers, whether they were struggling with, their chain of command or communication. If they tried to go back to Epik, there was nothing that they could do because all they do is get you in the door, but they don't necessarily resolve any issues. And that becomes an issue in and of itself because for those who have, issues like, oh, I need to go back home for something, or, oh, I actually need the time off. X, Y, Z, I might be sick, I'm in the hospital, like, what do I do? It has to be through their coworkers or through their principal.
Yep.
And that person may not necessarily be the most equipped to help or the most interested person in helping.
Yeah, and that's the problem too. Like, the coworker, like, you have a couple of coworkers. You got the people who you teach with, and then you have your handler. So your handler is the one that, they pick you up from the orientation place. They get you set up in your apartment. They go to immigration with you. They help you open your bank account and all of that. Now, the thing is that this job is not a job most people want because they have to speak English, But it's the job that comes with the most points. So the way the system in Korea works, specifically for the education system, is that each teachers, they go on a point-based system. So the more point you get, the more benefits you get. So you could choose a school in a metropolitan city.
Oh, so like move to if you wanted to change your career path. Okay.
Or you can have more, I guess, the more points you can move up from, like, just a homeroom teacher to, like, a teacher for this, a teacher for that. And it comes with points, and that means higher pay, and that means, like, better standing within your career. And it just continually, it propels you forward to where you want to be. So with the English teaching, because it's hard, because it's a language, it has a lot of points. So if the person is the English teacher, that's already come with a set of points, and they are your handler, that comes with another set of points. So you just win it. So most people don't take the job because they want to do it. They take it because they know when they finish this year, they get more points and they get to move forward, or they get to, like, choose what class they want to teach that next year, because every year it's a rotation. So if they want, like, less responsibility, there's certain, like, position you can get for that. But in order to get, like, first dibs, you have to have a certain amount of points. So you will have people who is your handler who don't want to be your handler. So they're going to drop the ball with everything.
So then you're basically left at the mercy of someone who may or may not care at all.
Yeah. And not just not care, it's just to them, it's like they're very apathetic towards it. So you might be coming to them like, yo, I need help. And they're like, is that something you could check with Epik? And that's another thing too, the lack of communication between Epik and the schools. When it's like, no, that's not something I can check with Epik, or no, I checked with Epik and they told me to check with you. And
so, and that, it's funny, like, I feel like for those who are listening, it sounds like, oh, like that's not so bad. But the reality is when you're in a foreign country, like you're in the middle of nowhere, because you're not even in a metropolitan area. And the reality is most of the people who apply to this program will not end up in a metropolitan area because there are not a lot of metropolitan areas in these countries. So you're really in the middle of nowhere. You're 4 to 5 hours away from what might be more relatable civilization. Like, because if you're in New York and you're lost, you can turn to someone.
Yeah.
Even if you're speaking only Spanish, you can turn to someone and hope that somebody will understand that language. Whereas when you're in the middle of Kansas, perhaps, you might turn around and be begging for help, and everyone's like, I don't know how to help you, and I'm not interested in engaging to help you.
Yep.
And so really you become a floundering fish. Like you're figuring your own thing out, which is, in my opinion, is quite irresponsible corporation.
For sure.
And because, again, you guys are thinking these are government entities, you know, that you would be handled a little more, you know, securely, but that's clearly not the case.
And Epik does this thing where they try to, like, you know, use it as a scapegoat where, oh, your teacher, your handler is not your servant, so you can't ask them everything. It's like me asking my handler how to use the heat in a Korean house that I've never used with the thermostat in Korean is not me asking you to be my servant. It's me asking you to not let me freeze while I'm taking a shower. You know, since I can't take days off if I'm sick. Like, what are you saying? Basic things like, where's the pharmacy in the town? Where do I need to go if I have a COVID scare? What do I need to do? That's not me asking you to be my servant. That's me asking you, what am I supposed to do? Because if I don't do it well, you blame me.
Yeah, and then it's also like, how do I just survive out here, straight up? And I feel like that's some of the things that people don't talk about when they glorify traveling.
Oh, for sure.
Everyone, especially now, like millennials are definitely the traveling generation, or should I say late millennials into early Gen Z.
Yeah.
Like very huge on the traveling, very huge on, I don't want to stay with the 9 to 5. But when you get out there, the reality is like you need to know how to fend for yourself.
Oh, for sure.
And like, unless you're going, and I'll say this, Europe is a lot easier because most people speak English. I would say in most countries. But again, like when you're going to somewhere where your language is not predominantly spoken, I'm like, it's a guessing game. And it becomes very, very easy. Like, it's funny because, well, it's not funny at all, but not too long ago, a young man from where I used to live in Waterbury, I believe, he was working at a restaurant, and he was just closing down, so he had to mop. And I think he mixed bleach and ammonia. Yeah, and it obviously created gas, and he died, right? He didn't even know. He was just mopping, and you just fall to your death. My thing is, if you can't read Korean, and you go to the grocery store, like, I'm going to buy some fabuloso, you don't know what's bleach, you don't know what's ammonia, you don't know what's what. So then it becomes, hey, like, can someone show me how to do these things? And when it's negatively received, like, oh, you're asking me to do too much, it becomes harder for you to continue to ask. And it's funny because when I got there, we were butting heads. We were butting heads when I got there because, as the title, proclaims, I'm an extrovert. So I don't mind asking people just about anything. I'll try to be very polite, but like, if I'm going to live somewhere, I want the answers of how I'm supposed to survive and survive well. And I remember turning to Rose multiple times and being like, hey, do you mind asking? And she was like, no, because I've spent the last year asking and they are not receptive to my questions and it comes off wrong. You know what I'm saying? And she's like, and I'd rather just
figure it out.
Right, figure it out myself. But at what point does figuring out become, I'm just surviving? You spoke about it humorously. There being mold in the bathroom, but there was legit mold all over your apartment. Like, the mold was so bad. And then to ask your landlord, hey, can you fix it? And she takes no steps. And then you talk to, your handler, like, hey, this is a real health concern. And we're not talking about like a spot of mold.
No, we're talking about mold.
We're talking
the bathroom is black.
The bathroom, the tiles is white, but like you wouldn't know because it's black. And so they being apathetic to the situation. You know what I'm saying? How many people then could have been harmed? You know what I'm saying? Could fall into a pitfall. Like simple things. Just because I can't differentiate bleach and ammonia, I can't breathe in my home because there's mold. And then having to like wait and finally be like, I'll just do it myself.
It's and the funny thing is, I'm glad you said bleach, because the way that their bleach look is different.
You would never know.
I don't know if you saw my bleach, but my bleach was in a spray bottle with like a black and white thingy that just said, like, it wasn't until I read Korean that I was like, oh, that says bleach. But like, it just looked like a spray bottle. You could spray it for like anything, and it does not, like, because they don't use chemicals that we use, it's not as strongly smelled as it should be. So you really do not understand like what is going on. And when you are in like a province, most of like their materials is either sourced through like, you know, smaller production places. So they don't have English. Like if I was in Seoul and I went to like the E-Mart, maybe I could see Clorox and they put Clorox under it. But where I live, it's just whatever that's in that town. Mm-hmm. So if I don't know what Clorox is in Korean, then
I'm just out of luck. I'm just in there spraying it up.
Whatever.
I'm just out of luck. But it's stuff like that that makes me, you know, that really made me want to talk to you today as well, because I'm like, where do we place the accountability, right? Because to some extent, absolutely, like, you know what you're signing up for. You're going to a country, you're going to teach. This is something that was your life's goal for so long. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's fair to assume that there are going to be culture shocks. There are simply things that you're going to have to learn and understand. Mm-hmm. But then also, too, at what point do the people that placed you there, these companies and even these schools, at what point are they accountable for your safety and your well-being? Because, yes, they get you an apartment, but if the place is falling apart, you got wood boards coming up, you haven't taken your tetanus shot, there's mold growing everywhere. I'm like, you can't switch apartments, no one's willing to rent to you because you're a foreigner in the area. Yes. I'm like, it becomes a matter of, is my well-being taken into consideration? And it seems like it's not. It's not.
Like, I would say the accountability, definitely I would say 80% falls on the people that are hiring you, and 20% falls on like the past teachers.
Can I also ask what parts of maybe the cultural differences did you not necessarily recognize? Because yes, I'll say, okay, 80% you said is the company's fault. 20%, you know, is the teacher before you's fault if they're not passing on information.
Or even people who are online.
Yes.
That's what I'm targeting. Because I'm like, yo, I did my research. Like, I did my research. Some people even, like, or they will do this thing where they take the responsibility off of them and be like, this is my experience, but definitely look at other videos to, you know, create a well-rounded. And I'm like, other video I'm watching
are
the same thing. Y'all never getting to the nitty-gritty of what is wrong with Epik. Like, personally, and I'm gonna say it right now, Epik should be dismantled. Epik should not be a thing, because why do you have this title when you don't take it seriously? And if it was up to me, if you are trying to go teach in Korea, if you are asking me for advice, I would strongly, like, I would do everything in my power to tell you not to go. Don't go. Because it's not worth it. You're like, yo, you don't understand. You know when it really hit me? When I realized, first of all, they pay you monthly. I can make what I make in Epik year. I kid you not. If I work full-time at the job that I am now, I can make what I made in a year with Epik in 3 months. In 3 months.
Oh, and they definitely market, come because you'll make so much money, you'll save so much.
They're liars. Like, Epik here, I don't care, man. Y'all can send me an email if you want, and I will talk to y'all, because y'all know y'all liars. They are liars. For you to save that money, you have to be their slave for at least 3 to 5 years. But like, they give you this thing where it's like, you can explore Korea and still have a saving. Like, oh my gosh, who doesn't want that? You know? And I'm like, y'all paying people pennies, you know? And everything in Korea is expensive.
Yeah, that's also the part, and I think that it's very important that we point that out. It's not like, oh, you're just broke because you're coming from the US or you're coming from the UK, where, like, you know, the pound or the euro or the dollar is higher. Literally, it's hard to live there on that salary. Like, if you're, it's funny because, again, like, I got there, and I'm like, why can't we, you know, do all these things? Mm-hmm. And she is like, girl, the budget is tight. So they pay me once a month. It's a 1 monthly sum. And she's like, and after all the bills and things are deducted, like I have to be able to eat for 4 weeks after. Because you pay your bills that same day you get your money.
Yep.
And then 30 days you're living without an inflow of cash. And if you didn't have money coming into the program, that's all that you have.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said, about whether or not you can negotiate. And I don't know.
You can't negotiate.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, online on YouTube, there are certain people that are like, oh, you can ask for this much more. You can do this. And
they're liars.
that's what I'm saying. I'm like, there's a lot of misleading content about the experience. And the only earnest one that I've seen thus far was that of I think she's a young Canadian Black woman.
Yeah.
And she talks about how safety, how security, how just everything that you need. If you've ever seen Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
what's that?
Literally just nothing was met. So she talked about that for certain. And I have to applaud her because in spite of all the difficulties she faced, she was like, I need to tell you all the truth. And I feel like it's so important that we talk about the different perspectives of experiences because there certainly seems to be one voice that is coming out of the program. Yeah. But I wanted to ask though, you mentioned that you would say that 80% would be at the fault of those, who kind of recruit children in and don't necessarily tell you what it really is. 20 would fall with those who promote the program and don't actually share what's going on. And, that would also fall with the rest.
Yeah.
But also too, I'm curious, do you feel like culturally you did your work before you got in to understand how that dissonance would impact you? And I say that because, again, we're Haitian, and when I think of a lot of the traveling that I do, I often, now that I go in, I think of culturally, do we match? You know what I'm saying? It's almost like there's a study of cultures, and there are warm cultures and cooler cultures. Did you at any point think, oh, like maybe it's my culture that's coloring my experience? Maybe it's just, my background, my not understanding that colored my experience? Because like you said, you were one of the fortunate ones in this workplace environment, but it wasn't the workplace that drove you away. What drove you away? And did your culture play a part of that?
Yeah, so I would definitely start with saying that the Korean culture is definitely a cold culture. It's very robotic. It's very about like the society, which it has its pros, because they're very like for the people, but they're for the people to their own detriment because there's no individuality. But yeah, so whereas like my culture, because my culture is definitely colored by the Haitian culture and the American culture too. So our culture is like from America, we are very individualistic, and not only that though, but we have boundaries. We understand boundaries, whereas the Haitian culture might not understand boundaries, but there's love. There is like people are trying their best to like communicate with love, with understanding for you, even though it's a little bit rough. It's a little bit rough around the edges. But in Korea, it's like you as the person don't matter. If you are not like, the core, the tool that is making this machine that is their society work well, you're disposable. So if you cannot, work well, if you cannot work well in their way that they have instructed you to work well, then you are a problem. And I think that was really what hammered inside my head within that 1 month, because then by that 1 month I already saw it, I already understood what it was, and then I had to do a 12 months of just sitting in it. I already understood, and I was like, this is not a way to live. And although I love the language, I love the history, I love how you guys are, they were an oppressed people, aka Japan. Let's talk about it. But they were able to establish themselves as South Korea, how they have, they do have a beautiful history, but the way you guys move culturally in your society, the morals and the way you treat individuals is just not what I want. And it's not what I want to live with. It's not what I want to be part of, and I don't have to be. So I'm gonna leave. Thank you for the experience. I have grown tremendously. Now I feel like my standards have just been more refined and more definite. So I'm very grateful for Korea. I'm grateful, even though it was terrible. Like, I can literally think of like a handful of moments where I was like, oh, okay, this was time. Like, as Margaret said, it was a time in my life. It was not the time of my life, you know? So, I am grateful for that, but I also realize that no matter how much love you may have for a certain culture, the love is not enough. So.
And I'll say, because we want to talk about all the ways that your travel changed you, outside of, you know, your weight transformation due to the lack of sustenance that you could take.
Oh my God.
Are there parts of yourself that you saw changing? We talk about travel a lot, and we enjoy the extrinsic joys, you know, like seeing these beautiful sights, enjoying food if we do enjoy the food. Mm-hmm. But there's also a lot to be said about traveling for what it does intrinsically. Mm-hmm. So what parts of yourself did you see go through a journey with you during this time?
I guess like the first thing is definitely like I've come to realize how privileged I am. Like, can I go with the word? Like, I've come to realize what certain privileges that has been bestowed upon me. Like, for example, being considered, because over there, like, let's talk about the elephant in the room. I'm a black girl walking the streets of Korea. Like, I've come to realize what it means to be American to the outside world. Like, as a black person, there's a privilege that comes with that. And people don't talk about it because it is a weird subject to talk about and it could be sensitive. But like being a black American, even though I said I could scream it until my voice was raw that I am Haitian. I'm not black American. But they're like, are you not American? Is that not what your passport said? Are you not black? You're black American.
Yeah.
And I'm like, nah, I am not. Or they'll be like, you're African American, right? I'm like, I am not. But I'll take it because, you know, that's what they view you as. I've also realized how now I'm much more like determined, or I am much more like anal about my standards and what I want. Where I'm like specifically when it comes to work, I know how I need to be treated, and if you cannot treat me like that, like Korea was most definitely a once in a lifetime. Like I will never stay in a thing that I did not like for a year, never. Like. That was, it happened, it will never happen again, I promise you. Like within that first month, if you put me in another country, like if I said, oh, I got the urge and I applied to Jet and the same thing happened, I'm packing my bag and leaving on that day. I'm like, I don't give a damn whatever money you're withholding from me, I don't care. Cause
she said, I will pay the fee.
Yeah.
I'm going home.
And I'm not getting a replacement. Because in no good conscience am I going to be like, oh, come take my place. Hell no. But like, y'all figure it out. Y'all keep the money. What you can't take from me is my citizenship. Sorry. That's a different group of people. So that's another thing too I've come to learn. And also too, I've come to learn that just because I love something doesn't mean that it's for me. It doesn't mean like...
That's a big one.
Yo, and the thing is, I love Korean people. Because I don't think I ever had any bad like
things to say about
Korean people. Like it's always about the society as a whole. Mm-hmm. It's always about like, you know, the rules, like the laws. Like there's no such thing as like a self-defense law in Korea.
Oh my gosh, yes, you mentioned that.
Yeah, like if somebody attack you, right, as a woman, y'all know, if somebody was to run up on me and I tase their ass, I'm in jail because a taser is a weapon in Korea. Like,
right, you gotta duke it out bare fist.
Yeah.
And
even
then that person has the right to turn around and sue you. So that person could have been the aggressor, but they can turn around and sue you, and you have to by your own hand produce evidence that shows that you were not the aggressor, which blew my mind actually. And to some extent I could see where it's like, oh, you know, because there are some instances where, you know, people are, you know, framed for things that they didn't do. Mm-hmm. But there's also the fact that particularly as women, especially when you travel.
In a foreign woman too.
In a foreign country. Yeah, I'm like, the ability to defend yourself is paramount. And so to think that at any point, if you defend yourself, you could be jailed. I'm like, you know, I really have to give y'all kudos because I'm still scrapping, and I'm pulling out all the way. I'm pulling out my brass knuckles, the ring. All you gotta see is a glint of light before I blind you.
Let's just say, every time I went through like any type of security in Korea, I was sweating like that Jordan Peele of me. Because I had a taser on me the entire year. I was like, I wish a will try it. My suitcase was packed. Like, I'm not even playing because I'm like, my thing is, if you attack me, how am I supposed to defend myself? I don't know the language. I don't know nobody, you know. Mind you, if I'm in Seoul, my handler is in Busan. Like, I'm at the tip of the country and she's at the other tip. Like, who's gonna come to my rescue? So I was like, the only thing I can do is tase you, give you a real good dose of, you know, electricity, put you in some type of warehouse, and then dip. Like, what else was I supposed to do?
You're better than me with the warehouse. But you know, it's funny because that's also something that we don't talk about often enough when we glorify traveling is your security and your safety. And what does that look like in a foreign country?
And know your laws.
And yes, like a lot of the times, you know, particularly as Black women in the U.S., we're like, know your laws, know your laws, know your laws, know your rights. But we don't say, hey, if you're going to go to Mexico, if you're going to go to Japan, if you're going to go to Australia, know your rights. I remember one of the questions that I asked, you know, not you, because I was the one that gifted you a taser on your way out. But I remember talking to these group of women, because it was predominantly women that were in this program, and asking, what measures have you put in place to defend yourself? And not many people had answers. And I'm like, you know, I'm never one to incite fear. You know what I'm saying? If you feel like, I mean, it's not like every day, you know what I'm saying, that you wake up like with a fear of God over you and getting attacked. But I think that the reality is that when you know it can happen to anyone at any time, but particularly because you're in a foreign country, you have no ability to speak for yourself. I think it's so important that we stress safety.
Oh, for sure.
Like, and that is also why when we talk about this conversation and where the accountability falls for, you know, the well-being of an individual in these programs, we need to talk about what measures are put in place for my protection. Because there are also cases, and the young woman mentioned this in her video as well, there are also cases of sexual harassment in the workplace over there. And then imagine your handler being the person who's sexually harassing you. So even when you get the opportunity to turn and be like, "Hey, Epik, you know, you're the person, you're the company who brought me there."
Is the handler.
Right. So this person's not going to rat themselves out and say, I'm sexually harassing this person. So then there's that. So then you can't go through the regular chain of command, or you might tell your principal, and then they tell you, don't you're overstepping your boundaries. This person is older than you. You're misreading the situation. And where I'm from, if someone puts, you know, their hand under your skirt, there's no a situation to be misread. You know what I'm saying?
What were you looking for? Right. They're under there.
You know? So, and we're joking about this now, but the reality is that's something that a lot of these student teachers are facing, right? And then to, you know, be ignored entirely by your chain of command and finally get to someone at Epik, the company that placed you there, and for them to tell you, hey, well, try not to be a bother over there, but keep yourself safe. Good luck.
Yeah, they're like, oh, they love to say that. Oh, don't go and shake up your school. You know, they work there. Those are people's lives. You have the opportunity to leave when you need to. And I'm like, that's a lie. Because I don't have the opportunity to leave when I need to. I have to do my year. Or else y'all would held things from me. You know, like one thing I would say for anybody who do, despite this video, go, knowing enough is enough.
Yeah, have your own boundaries. And we say this too because, and again, not to tell anyone's stories, but like, we say this too because these are real life incidences. Like your neighbors, other cohorts, like people are now coming out and being like, while I was there, you know what I'm saying, I was physically assaulted. I was
just verbally
abused, you know, like just thrown around, made to do things I was very uncomfortable doing in these workplaces, and I had no one to advocate on my behalf. And I think it's very important because we keep saying, like, you know, read these contracts, but also you are your own advocate no matter where you go. Language or not, pick up and go. Knowing enough is enough. And, you know, it's unfortunate because, again, a lot of people are often like, I have nowhere to go.
And that also to go back on privilege is just like, I am a very privileged person. Like, it's something like, you know, maybe it make me feel a little achy to admit, but that's the truth of the matter. Like I said earlier, I'm loved. Like, I have a home to come back to.
But actually, a lot of people don't.
They don't.
And again, so some of these students who were like, I actually don't have
or
parents back home.
Yeah.
I don't have a supportive family to turn back to. Like, these are real life situations. And so That's why also too, like it's just so imperative that you do the work, but it's also imperative that we tell our truths and our experiences, so that when you're influencing someone else's decision, you know, albeit unknowingly, you can at least give them the opportunity to say, you know what, based on someone else's experience, I don't think that's a safe place for me.
Yeah.
And it disturbs me that, you know, on this end of the world, these programs are so praised, they're so spoken about at length on social media, on YouTube, on, you know, all of these platforms. And once you get into the country, when you're tapped into their social media, it's a whole different thing.
Oh, most different.
Everyone knows the abuse you are going through. Just no one cares to do anything about it.
Yeah.
And that to me, that to me, it leaves me speechless.
If you really want to go to Korea, take the language route. Like, don't work in Korea.
I think that was also a huge factor for you, is that working, because I know when I lived abroad, every time that I lived abroad, I was predominantly a student for the most part. And so when you're a student, you have a classroom full of people that are there experiencing the same thing as you, who are kind of there also to learn but have fun. You know, you have like the school effect. It's giving like college, you know? Whereas when you go as a worker, you're an adult. You're an adult, you're paying the bills, you're not there to have fun. You don't really have a whole bunch of people to pick out of it, so it becomes, we're here to survive all together.
No, for sure. And I would say I am lucky because, like I said, I had a cohort, okay? Like, if I didn't, like, and I think that's the reason why, too, I stayed that long, because that was one of the questions that I asked myself when I got back is, why did I complete it? And I realized, like, I completed it because I had one great person that I could count on at work. And because she was the person that I predominantly work with, like, any inconvenience that happened at work was very, like, minimal, because it was just a passing convenience. It wasn't like a persistent inconvenience. And then I had my neighbors, and then I had one of the girls that came with me during my intake. Like, so we went through the orientation together. We understood everything about like what was going on within our year, because even though you have people who are a year before you, their situation could be different. So that's why I realized that I stayed that long, because it was like, it's temporary, and also too, I knew the year was for me. It was just a year. I'm coming back. There's better things in the horizon for me. So I knew it was temporary. But I didn't figure that out, funny enough, until like November. That's when that hit. So from April to November, that was a very dark time of my life.
Yeah, can we talk about what your mental health looked like?
Oh, baby, we wanted to end it all. I was like,
just no preamble.
Oh, no.
Straight into the deep end.
Oh, no.
No, but really, you left on such a high note. So, like, I mean, I just imagined I would imagine it took maybe a course of months, but you're saying it was a lot faster than that.
Yeah, like I said, like the higher they are, the harder they fall. Like, I went, because I kid you not, like, I want you guys to understand, I really believe my life was going to start in Korea. Like, you guys, and the thing is, that's what happens when you're ungrateful, people. Like, let's be true, because that's the real thing. I was ungrateful for the life I had before. Because I'm like, I was living. I was traveling. I had a great school. Like, even though UConn was taking money upon my head top. But
also, go Huskies. They just won the Nationals not too long ago. But
hey, that's my school.
Now you claim them. Now that's your school.
Yeah, of course.
But you had put so much of your own life, your personal life
on hold,
because you thought that your life was going to start in Korea. So then once you got there and you recognized that was not the case, can you kind of walk us through emotionally what that felt like for you?
So, like I said, everything really took a turn, like, and it went wrong so fast. It took a turn on April, like, I don't know the exact date, but the beginning of April. I went to the Lion King, on March 31st, had a grand old time, got to stay in Busan, and I was like, so this is what it's like living in a metropolitan, area, and it just reminded me of home. Because, we were going out every weekend, even if it was a pandemic. If it wasn't going out, we were staying in, but we were having fun, and then I came home, and it was April, And I went back to everything, and the next weekend rolled around, and it was the same. I was like, huh, well, this is not the life that was supposed to start. So by mid-April, things just took a turn. I was like, so I had a good life. Like you had a good man. He's a good man, Savannah. I had a good life. Yo, I had a great life before I came here. I was going out. I was learning, like even at my job, even though most of the time it was mundane, I was still learning things at my job because I already had everything unlocked by the end of March. So there was no growth. That's another problem with the job. There was no growth for me anymore. And I was sitting there and I was like, okay, so there's no dating pool here because first of all, language, people will be like, oh, love can surpass language. My key thing when I'm in a relationship is communication. You know, so the dating pool closed. Me getting any type of growth at work because I took a gap year before my grad school, and I was like, I need to learn some stuff, like whether it's like adulting or whatever. That avenue closed, no more growth. And then I'm just in a small ass town by myself and just in a room in an apartment by myself.
Well, the mole was there.
Yeah, the mole was there keeping me
and
home.
so were your little stuffed friends.
Yes.
So if you guys ever wondered where we got these are BB's closest friends from Korea.
They have seen me through it all.
They were her only listening audience because there's also the time difference.
Mm-hmm.
I think that also played a major factor for you, is because I think you were 14 hours ahead.
Yes.
So by the time that you would like call us and want to chat, we were like, hey, it's bedtime. We got to hit the set. We got work in the morning.
Calling me, I'm like, I'm going to work.
Yeah, so it was literally, we were on opposite ends.
Yeah, so all of that, by mid-April, I was already like, oh, okay, so this thing that we have literally prepped for, guide ourselves for. Like when I tell you, I did everything for this moment, and then I had to sit down and really talk to myself and be like, yo, sis, like you literally put yourself there. Like I had to talk to myself honestly and be like, you see what you did? Because you did that. And nobody did this but you. So you threw away a good life that you had because you were ungrateful, and then you moved here, and now you're taking just beatings from
beating after
after beating. So then I really fell into like, some might call it depression, but it wasn't diagnosed, and I get really like anal with like diagnoses and stuff. So I will call it a melancholic time in my life. Very sad. And I was just sitting there, I was like, yo, so if our life is not starting now,
when does it begin?
Yeah. And will it begin?
And you know what? That to me, like, I think that you expressing that is so important. Like, and I'm earnestly grateful that you're sharing that, because I think that so often we're waiting for something to start our lives, or something to start an experience, or we're waiting for the signs, we're waiting for things to line up, we're waiting for, X, Y, Z in order to be in a relationship, to get the job that I actually want, to travel, to see the world, to whatever. We're always waiting and not realizing that we can do in the present moment, and that we are doing and being in the present moment. And I've it's funny, I was talking to a mutual friend of ours, Sabrina, not too long ago, and we were discussing the difference between doing and being. And it's funny because what she said really resonated with me, and it's funny that we're called human beings, right? We are already in our lives being exactly what we're supposed to be. So instead of waiting for something to happen, why not be that? Or start making the changes to be that. So you started off the podcast saying that, you're Rose, you're from Haiti, but to close off our podcast today, I'm trying something new with all of our guests. And I'm asking them to reintroduce themselves at the end of the podcast, given what they've talked about, given their recent experiences. And I'll give you an example. I'll end this podcast saying, hi, my name is Esther Alexis. I am the child of 2 kids that fell recklessly in love and decided to bet their love against the world, came to a foreign country, and I am now the daughter of resilience, of joy, and a student of the world, and I'm grateful.
I would say, I guess, hi, I'm Rose. Finally learned what it's like to be loved and love myself, despite the curveballs that has been thrown at me, and due to that love from all around that I've received, I've been able to experience life to its fullest degree, and I will continue to do that.
Well, Rose, it is nice to meet you.
Thank you.
So, y'all, that is it.
Yeah.
Y'all have met Rose. Let us know how you feel about those experiences that she shared with us in the comments. Feel free to talk about your own travel experiences, whether they were for the better or for the worse. Feel free to ask questions. They're going to be posted under YouTube and our Spotify polls. And be sure, as usual, to like, comment, subscribe, share with a friend. And if you're listening on our listening platforms, be it Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, please write a comment. That is how we keep the lights on, and that is how we keep having these discussions. So we look forward to talking with you guys more and more. Rose will be available in the polls as well. You have questions for her at the YouTube.
Yeah.
So please feel free to ask, and we will see you the next time.
Thank you.
Bye.